I was awake at 3 a.m. with something on my mind, decided to take a walk. I haven't seen the winter constellation Orion for a few weeks. As the northern hemisphere approaches winter, it's easy to see Orion and the Pleiades in the evening sky. You can see it other times of the year, of course, later at night or early morning, as long as it's not taking up the same space in the sky as Sol, aka the sun. Orion is depicted in the sky by way of Greek mythology as chasing the seven sisters, which is another name for the Pleiades. Most car companies are named after their founders, but Subaru is named for the constellation Pleiades. The Subaru automobile logo depicts 6 stars, which is the number you can see in the Pleiades. Here's a question for you. Why has it been known as the Seven Sisters for hundreds of years longer than telescopes were able to demonstrate that one of the visible stars is actually 2, so close together they're probably binary? I can think of 2 possibilities, maybe you know others, but between the 2, do you think early humans had A, way better eyesight, or B, telescopes before Galileo reinvented them? I tend to believe the latter. Many of these incongruous facts from ancient history have been explained by ancient astronauts bringing tech to Earth. Could be, but it seems more likely to me that civilizations rise and fall. Sometimes they fall hard enough, with so much catastrophic effect, technology gets lost. Humans may have invented telescopes several times. We're still unable, with current knowledge and our tools, to construct a pyramid like those in Egypt. We can move those huge blocks, thousands of tons each, but we're unable to cut them so perfectly and fit them together that there are essentially no spaces between them. Children notice stars and constellations if they grow up where they can see them. Most grown-ups don't anymore. They have other grown-up concerns that take up their attention, and besides, been there, done that. They probably assume nothing in the night sky has changed enough to be worth caring about. Except, that's not true about Orion. Decades ago, I worked with an older gentleman, a ham radio operator, and a serious technical whiz, as they mostly are. I learned a lot from him. His eyesight wasn't so good anymore. At some point, he noticed a constellation at night, but had forgotten what Orion looked like when he was younger. What he could see were the bright 3 stars in what we call Orion's belt. He saw big red Betelgeuse above it and Rigel below it. He asked me the name of that constellation that looks like a dipole antenna. That's simply an antenna with 2 primary arms, which are more effective than picking up signals than a unipole antenna. Old-style televisions required bipole antennas. For some applications, when the 2 arms are extending from a frame opposite of each other, you get better reception. So when I see Orion the Hunter, I always also see the constellation bipole antenna. Betelgeuse is a supergiant red star. It's so big, if Betelgeuse were at the center of our solar system instead of Sol, the outer rim of that star would extend beyond Mars' orbit. That thought blows my mind compared to Terra's yellow dwarf, aka main sequence G-class star. However, if you were to chance spend a few minutes viewing Orion, Betelgeuse is noticeably dimmer than it once was. It's evolving, as stars do. Someday, Betelgeuse could possibly go supernova. Astronomers were intrigued at that possibility not that long ago. The current scientific consensus is that Betelgeuse seems to be settling down again, and there's little chance, right now at least, that it's going to explode anytime soon. Maybe so, but 20 years ago, more or less, it hadn't changed a bit. So who knows? Scientific knowledge evolves too. I just wonder, given current social trends on this planet, especially within the American Empire, if Betelgeuse did go supernova in a few decades, what humans viewing it would think they are seeing. Like my ham operator coworker, that would depend on their perspective. I wonder because, as I've mentioned, civilizations come and go. A lot of knowledge can be lost when an empire goes crashing into the past. Empires are more or less defined as controlling territory in which subjects don't have much political power. Puerto Ricans and those in other American territories don't have the right to vote for American presidents, right now at least. America pretty much replaced the British Empire. Before that, there's been a number of empires you may have heard about. The Mongol and the Persian Empire. Russia and Spain had empires. Within the American Empire, there's a growing anti-science trend. Public policies and social attitudes are being formed within the country that are disconnected from long established facts about biology and sound medical practices. The catastrophic results of this anti-scientific worldview have been immediately apparent. Nonetheless, there seems to be some chance that the American leader who has undeniably charted this alternative facts course could remain in power at least another 4 years. He's on the record saying he wants more than that. Screw the U.S. Constitution, I guess. He has significant support from citizens and an entire political party, even when it can easily be seen his policies and leadership are altogether detrimental to the general health of Americans. 200,000 right now. When relevant questions are raised to him or his avid worshippers about the documentable negative health effects of his policies, he, and often they, simply label those unpleasant facts fake news. Do you know what's left over when whole populations quit believing in science? Do you understand what you have when people believe in authority and no longer trust real-world facts? Can you see how people think when their world is interpreted for them and they swallow it whole by any standard that's unreal? You have superstition. In 100 years, will people who once called themselves Americans see a supernova in Orion and be told and believe it's a warning from Holy Queen Ivanka IV that they need to work the fields harder because they need to bring more appropriate offerings to the Trump palace? I admit I've read some science fiction, but I've also read a lot more history, and that's what I had on my mind at 3 a.m. My name's Jim. Peace, I hope.